Hi, this is Katie from Nerd Church. In yesterday's stream, it came out that Amanda wasn't exactly sure what a cardinal is. So rather than getting us even more derailed than we had been, I said I would make a separate video. This is that video. Okay. At the most basic level, a cardinal is an advisor to the Pope. If we go way back to the beginning, the Pope's advisor, and we're talking like 6th, 7th century, when travel and communication were obviously much more difficult than they are today, the cardinals were the four priests that oversee the churches that are actually part of the Diocese of Rome. A diocese, I should mention, is basically a geographical area that a particular person is in charge of dealing with the spiritual and material needs of the people within that diocese. So the Diocese of Rome is basically Rome and its environs. So by the 8th century, it was established that cardinals, and by then the Pope had started appointing bishops, like important bishops from other places, so like Antioch, Jerusalem, places like that, and of course Constantinople, as cardinals. So the cardinals had the right to advise the Pope, and by the 8th century, the cardinals had the exclusive right to elect the Pope because we had tried other methods of selecting a Pope, and it didn't work out that great, like, for real. Well, we can talk about that, but yeah. Anyway, so with a few fits and starts, by 1054 onwards, it's been set in stone that the cardinals are the ones who elect the new pope. So, which makes sense. These are the senior churchmen. These are the people who have been advising the pope and been in the room when it happened for some period of time. So obviously just advising the Pope. Now, advising the Pope can take two forms. Either they, write a letter, give him a phone call, request an audience, or every so often, Leo has said he wants to do it once or twice a year. They have a extraordinary consistory where all the cardinals get together and talk about stuff. There's also what they call an ordinary consistory, which is essentially where the Pope just announces new cardinals. It's less of a big deal. Francis was not real big on extraordinary consistories. Leo seems to like the idea. We'll see what happens. So, what are the requirements for being a cardinal? The short answer is the requirements for being a cardinal are being appointed by the Pope. Traditionally, I should also mention that generally the Pope is elected from the College of Cardinals, but that is not a requirement, which is also part of the reason why requirements for being part of the College of Cardinals are not particularly strict. The reason for that is the Catholic teachings about apostolic succession, because we believe that the authority of the Pope comes from the fact that if you play a giant game of 6 degrees of separation, you can draw a straight line of this guy ordained this guy that connects Pope Leo XIV to Jesus Christ saying to Peter, "Upon this rock I will build my church." The Catholic expression about this, which is sometimes a thought terminating cliche, is the Catholic Church founded by Jesus Christ upon the rock of Peter. But because of that emphasis on Peter, that means that the requirements to be pope cannot be written in such a way that it would theoretically get rid of that it would theoretically disqualify Peter, because we can't get rid of Peter. Which means that basically the requirements for being pope are you have to be a baptized male Catholic. Once again, the Latin Catholic Church is interested in kind of setting the floor, and then once we know where the floor is, then people can add on that until we get up to the ceiling, which is heaven. That's the theory. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, it actually seems to work pretty well. Now, for the past 100 years, cardinals have all been churchmen. And that is in large part because in the 19th century, there was a big problem with Catholic rulers who had, in the Middle Ages, been given the right to request that a certain person be appointed as cardinal, or the fact that, for example, the Patriarch of Lisbon is the only, there is an expectation that most of the really important dioceses and archdioceses. So, for example, in America, the archbishops of New York and Chicago have almost always been cardinals. The Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem is almost always a cardinal. Pope Paul VI appointed the heads of all of the Eastern churches cardinals so that they would have representation. And then sometimes popes will, again, just appoint somebody a cardinal because they this is somebody they respect. This is somebody that they listen to. They like the guy. Also, the heads of the really important Vatican departments. So the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, the Dicastery for the Causes of Saints, those really important ones will typically be headed up by a cardinal, who's also a bishop or an archbishop or what have you. This has led to some discussion in recent years because there are currently two women, they're both nuns, who are in charge of dicasteries that would normally, that person would be a cardinal. And the discussion has been, can we make them into a cardinal? And the answer technically is yes, they could be cardinals. Now, the other question is, would they be voting cardinals or non-voting cardinals? Because since the mid-20th century, the policy has been that only cardinals under 80 years of age are allowed to vote in the conclave. So there's, basically the questions are, can a woman be a cardinal? Probably. Can a woman vote in the conclave? If the Pope says she can. That's basically what it's going to come down to. But essentially, that's how it is. You're a cardinal because the Pope says you're a cardinal, and you're a cardinal kind of in addition to your other jobs. Essentially, being a cardinal is a side gig. Probably the best and nerdiest way to think of being a cardinal is that being a cardinal is essentially a special item that causes a normal priest or a normal cardinal or a that ca- so- that causes a normal priest or a normal bishop or a normal archbishop or even possibly a normal nun. You hand them you hand them the item, their clothes turn red, and they become a cardinal.